Hey guys, welcome to your circles practice test or study guide solutions. So let's get right down to it and take a look and see what we got. All right, so the first problem is x squared plus y squared equals 100, and we want to find the center and the radius of each. Well, we know that if we look at this, let me just get my highlight. So I know that in this case, um, h is going to be 0 because we're not adding anything to the x squared. And k is going to be 0 because we're not adding anything to the y squared. So we know that we're going to have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 100. But then to find the radius, we have to take the square root of 100, which gives us 10. So our center is going to be at the origin, 0, 0, and um, our radius is going to be 10. Okay? All right. Now, when we're looking at the second one, we see that h is, since it's always, remember, our circle equation is always in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. That's our form. So we now know that h, since it's minus, h is 11. And since it's plus, remember, it's always opposite because it's always y minus k. So instead of it's going to be a negative 6. Okay. And so to find r, we just take the square root of 81 and get 9. So our center is going to be at x is 11, y is negative 6, and r is 9. Okay. Now, our next one is in the form, well, in this case, since we have a plus 1, h is negative 1. We have a plus 4, h is negative 4. And then we've got to take the square root of 7. We've got to take the square root of 7. So our center is going to be at the point negative 1, negative 4, and then we're going to take the square root of 7, and that's going to be our radius. Okay? All right, looking at number 4. Well, on number 4, it looks like we have an x value of negative 3. Do it right here. An x value of negative 3. It looks like we have a y value of positive 2. And I'm looking at this radius right here. That radius looks like it's 1, if I am estimating that right. So we know that h equals negative 3. Plugging it into the formula, that's going to be x plus 3. We know that k is 2, so plugging into the formula, it's going to be k minus 2. And then r is 1. Squaring 1 is just still 1. So there's our equation for that circle. Okay, for this circle right here, it looks like our x value of the center point is 2. So h is 2. It looks like our y value of the center point is 1. So k equals 1. And it looks like I measure here. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like it goes down 4. So my radius is 4. So it's x minus 2, y minus 1, and then square r, which gives us 16. Okay? The next one is, it looks like we have let me get rid of my picture here because my face is in the way here. It looks like we have an h of 0 because that's our x value. It looks like we have a k of positive 2, so our h is 0. Our k is positive 2, and our radius is 3. And I got that radius just by counting 1, 2, 3. It looks like that'll get me to 3 units long. Or you could go up. You could go 1, 2, 3, up like that. With that being said, so you know you have put a 0 in for h, put a 2 in for k, put a 3 and square it in for r. And so remember, x minus 0 is just x squared. X squared minus 0 squared is x squared. And then we have the y minus 2 squared. And then we have this should maybe be, remember, 3 squared. So 3 squared equals 9. And there's our equation of that circle. Okay, so the next one says, find the circumference and area of a circle whose equation is x minus 1 plus y squared, x minus 1 squared plus y squared equals 25. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So this, I think all we need to know is what the radius is. To find the circumference and area of a circle, we just need to know our radius is 5. And how did I get that? I just took the square root of 25 and got 5. And then you just use your formula. Circumference equals 2 pi r, and then 2, so it's 10 pi, which is rounds to approximately 31.4. Area equals pi r squared. R is 5, so 5 squared is 25. 25 pi is approximately 78.5. And we're done. Okay, so this next one says write an equation of this circle. Now, I just did a rough sketch of this circle, and I found on this circle that my center point was at negative 3, 4, because there's my center point. So now I need to know what my R is. So remember, my center point is at negative 3, 4. So there's my H is negative 3, so that becomes x plus 3 squared. My K is 4, so that's y minus 4 squared. Now we need to know what this R is right here. So what's R? Well, I came over here and made a little right triangle out of this. And it looks like if I kind of just measure right up and down and right and left on the coordinate plane, I get a right triangle that's a 3, 4, 5. Well, it's a 3, 4. Now, I know that anytime you have a 3 for A and a 4 for B, it's a triple that's 3, 4, 5. You could also do the Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and you're going to see that R, or C squared, C is equal to 5. So remember, this is 5 squared. And remember, this was the negative 3 for H. And this is K equals positive 4. And that's how we got it. Okay, so this next one, we want to graph it. So we know that we have a center point. So our H is going to equal 1, and my K is going to equal negative 2. So I went over here and I graphed the point 1 comma negative 2, and that's my center. Now I know my radius is going to be 2 because I take the square root of that and get 2. So my radius is, so what I should do, sorry, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. If my radius is going to be 2, so let me just see here. It's going to look something, let me shrink it down here, sorry. It's going to look something like this, right? It's not perfect here, guys. So since I have R squared is 4, so R is 2, so my radius is going to be 2. It's going to be 2 units, 1, 2. So it's going to look something like this. This isn't perfect, but you get the point of it. There's the circle right there. So it should be, your center point should be down in the 4th quadrant. All right. All right, next problem. In the figure to the right, the quadrilateral is inscribed in a circle. Find the value of x plus y. Well, here's the deal. So since we know that this line right here, is a diameter because it contains the center point, we know that this has to be a right angle, right? Because remember, an inscribed angle of a diameter is always a right angle. I think we talked about that, and which would make sense because you're talking about 180 degrees, right, from here to here, and half of 180 degrees is 90. So we don't know what x and y are, but we know that when you take x plus y, it has to be 90 because this triangle here has to add up to 180 degrees inside it, and therefore x and y have to equal 90 because you already have the 90 in the corner right there. Okay, problems 11 through 14, they dealt with the equation 5k squared minus 2k minus 7 equals 0. And then I had you do it by solving it by factoring, solve it by completing the square, solving it by the quad formula, and then solve it by graphing on Desmos. I'm just going to do that one in class, guys. So I'll just do in class because it takes too long, and I think it's just me just doing it in class since we have some time on Wednesday. So I'll do that one in class to make sure you get the answers right. I started doing it, and I started getting a bunch of work here, and I just said, I just gave up and said, I'll just do it in class just because it got a little long. So I didn't want to make this video all that long. Okay, so the next problem is we want to find the measure of arc AB. So we want to find this arc right here. Now, what I did is I needed to figure out what this theta was right here. Once I find that theta right there, I'll multiply that times 2. That will give me the central angle, and that will give me the measure of AB. Because remember, the central angle is just the measure of the arc is the central angle. The intercepted arc is equal to the central angle. So if I know the central angle, that's equal to the intercepted arc. So what I did is it looked like I know that I have a 3 right here. Let me do this in green. This 3, and that's adjacent. That's the adjacent side of the theta. And then I know I have the hypotenuse right here. That 6 is the hypotenuse on that right triangle. So I wanted to figure out what that theta was. So I used cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse, okay? And that's cosine. So cosine of theta equals 3/6. I took the inverse cosine, and if you can think about it, the inverse cosine of 1/2 is 60 degrees. Now, I had to multiply that by 2 because theta is equal to 60. And then I multiply that by 2, and I get 120 for the central angle. So the arc that it contains is also 120. Okay? Now, on this next problem, I really feel like they should have told us these are right angles. So those distances are the same length and they're at right angles. So if that's true and those distances are the same, then we can say that segment AC is congruent to segment AB because they're the same distance from the center point. They're the same distance from the center point O. So what we can say is we can say X. So what I did is I made this arc here X. I made this arc here X, and I made this 150. And if I add them up, X plus 150 equals 360 because it's a circle. And then X plus X is 2X. And then I just said subtracted 150 from both sides and got 110. And then divided by 2 and got 105 for X. So each one of those arcs is 105. Now, number 17, I say, okay, so this one, I looked at this triangle right here. And I know that since this is a right angle, this splits it into equal parts, which is 6 and 6. And so I know the sine. Now I'm using sine because I have the, remember, this is, I'm using sine. Did I use sine? Let me see. Did I do that right? Let me look at my picture. I may have this out. Okay, so let's see here. If I know that this from here to here, this is a right angle. Okay, so this 7, that's the hypotenuse, right? So 7 is the hypotenuse, and then I know the opposite is going to be 6. So that's right. So 7 is the hypotenuse, and the opposite is 6. So that 7 is that radius right there. So we have sine of theta is equal to 6 over 7. This is opposite over hypotenuse because that 7 is a radius, which is a hypotenuse. So now we want to take the sine, because that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. We want to take the inverse sine of 6/7, and we get approximately 59 degrees. Now, we're not done because that is just this theta right here. And remember, to find the entire arc, we need the entire central angle. So we know the measure of angle AOB. AOB is 118. So the measure of arc AB is also 118. And that's how we did that one. And obviously, guys, ask questions on tomorrow or Wednesday, and we can definitely go over it. Okay, so this one right here on number 18, our formula is if they intersect on the outside, then we add the two angles and add the two intercepted arcs. We subtract the two intercepted arcs and divide that by 2. So when the intersection of the secants or tangents is on the outside, we subtract the two intercepted arcs, and then we divide by 2. So 140 minus 160 divided by 2 gives me 40. The next one, same thing. We take 250 minus 110, divide that by 2, and we get 70. Now, this one right here, I think it was the very beginning that the x and that outside angle, 65 degrees, are supplementary. We learned that at the very beginning, supplementary. So 65 plus x equals 180. Subtracting 180 from 65, we get x equals 115 for an angle right there. Okay? All right, so the next one here is we want to just do, we just look at the segments, the pieces of the secants, and we just say, okay, 2 times x equals, so what do we get? Short times long equals short times long. And then we multiply them together, and then we just solve it, x equals 6. Now this one right here, we have to do, you take the entire secant, in this case, which is 6 plus 8, which gives me 14. And then you multiply by the outside part, which is 6. So the entire one times the outside part equals the entire one, which is 5 plus 6 times the outside part, which is 5. And then it just becomes a bunch of algebra. 14 times 6 is 84. Do the distributive property here. So you get, take that 5 and distribute through, 25 plus 5x. And then you subtract 25 from both sides to get 59, divide by 5, and you get approximately 11.8 for x. Now on this one, remember you have a tangent and a secant. This is a tangent right here, and this is a secant right here. So we have a tangent and a secant, so it's the tangent squared equals the entire part times the outside part. So the x squared equals 30, so x equals the square root of 30, which is approximately 5.5. All right, next one, you have an inscribed angle. Remember, and its arc. The arc is always 2 times the inscribed angle. So 2 times x equals 90, so x equals 45. Now, when you have an angle inside, when secants intersect on the inside, you add. So now we add the 40 and the 30 and divide by 2. So 70 divided by 2 is 35. Likewise, we know that this angle is a 90 degrees, so 90 is going to equal 1/2 the two intercepted arcs, x plus 100. We'll multiply both sides times 2 to get rid of that 1/2, and then we get 180 equals x plus 100. Solving for x, we subtract 100 from both sides and get x equals 80. All right, the next one, these are kind of interesting problems. This one right here, this x is just a radius. So what I did is just move that radius over to this side to make it a right triangle. And since this is equidistant right here from here to here, this has to be this has to be 5. So we can do x is the hypotenuse of this right triangle right here. So I have 3 squared plus 5 squared equals, so what do we have? 9 plus 25 equals x squared. 9 plus 25 is 24. X equals the square root of 24. And then the square root of 24 is approximately, 4.8, something like that, right? All right. Let's see here. This one right here, you want to find x. So we know what I did is I found b right here, and then I'm just going to multiply that number by 2, and that will give you x, the whole thing. So 1 squared plus b squared equals 3 squared. And then so 1 plus b squared equals 9, b squared equals 8. B equals the square root of 8, and then you got to multiply that by 2, and you get about 5.7. All All right, so the next one, number 29, is this 92 is standing for, I'll do it in green, this arc right here. Okay. So that angle right here is just half the intercepted arc. So that is going to be 92 divided by 2, which is 46. And then since we have a straight line, we have 46 here. Now, x is going to be half of the 126. So I believe that is 63. And then plus the y is equal to 180 because we have a straight line. So just doing the math, we get 46 plus 63 plus y equals 180. And we're doing the math here. Oh, I didn't finish that math. So let me do that math really quick. So we get 46 plus 63. That's a 9. That's a 10. So 109. So we get y plus 109 equals 180. And then I'll just subtract 109 from both sides. And if I figure out what 180 minus 109 is, 180 minus 109, I get 71 degrees. So this is going to be 70, y is going to equal 71 degrees. All right, let's take a look at the next ones. Well, the first thing I did is I know that this plus this plus this plus whatever this other missing arc right here has to equal 360 degrees. So I figured it out that it's 103. So now to find y is just going to be half of 103 plus 88, and that gives me 95.5. X is going to be half of 86 plus 88, and that gives me 87. W is going to be 1/2 of 86 plus 84, which gives me 85. And Z is going to be 1/2 of 84 plus 103, which gives me 93.5. All right, the 31 is, so in this one right here, we know that X is equal to 2 times 60. So we know that X equals 120 because its intercepted arc, its inscribed angle is this 60 degrees. Y is going to be 2 times 32. So that's going to be 64. So we know this Y is going to be 64 right here. And then Z is going to be, let's see here, Z is going to be 88 times 2, which is 176. Now the last one, since this is a diameter because it contains the center point, that means this inscribed angle must be a right angle. Now, since this is 92, we divide it by 2 to get its inscribed angle of 46. So now we just say 90 plus 46 plus x has to equal 180 because it's a triangle. And so I think if we do the math, we get x equals 44. And we're done. All right, guys, if you have any questions, the test should look similar to this. I think there will be this will be the kind of the meat and potatoes of your test. There may be a few other different kinds of problems, but this should get you where you need to be if you need to. All right, so we'll have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.